Hello, namaste. So I just want to talk really quickly today about energy, and I'm gonna try to make this a little bit shorter video, but just basically talking about general energy and how we really can create the world that we live in based on how we're using our energy. So the phrase that I always like to use, and this isn't something that I invented, this is something that I either read in a book or I saw it on the internet or something, but energy flows where our thoughts go. Okay, so this essentially means that whatever we're thinking most of, that is where the energy is going to go. And this happens sometimes, for example, if you're thinking of a certain person, this happens actually quite a lot with especially like people that are really intuitive, and it'll happen that if you're constantly thinking of a person for maybe like a day or a couple of days, then it just so happens that that person calls. And that's like a classic example of, whatever we're thinking, the energy is going to go there. So, if we're thinking of making a piece of artwork, for example, and we're constantly thinking of it over and over and over, our energy is eventually going to go to creating that artwork. And I think, what's happening today, this is why I really like promote yoga and, trying to do more meditation, but not even meditation. I don't like to use the word meditation because I think it scares some people, but just sitting quietly and just breathing, or just, focusing on the breath. I also promote doing a lot of mantra because especially like for people, when it's difficult at first to do the breathing, the mantra helps because it kind of gives you like this repetitive thing that you can continue to think about that will help you clear the mind. But going to back to, energy flows where your thought goes, creating a piece of artwork, if you keep thinking about it over and over, eventually you'll come to a point where you decide that you want to take action, you want to do it. So now you're going to put the physical energy, the mental energy, the emotional energy into creating that piece of artwork. And I think what's happening, like right now, we have a lot of fragmented energy in general, a lot of fragmented thoughts on the planet. If you're even like following what's happening on a global level, there's like one thing after the next. And I talk about this in some of my other videos. We have to, like, as far as this, good and evil, we have to kind of, see the bigger picture and keep our focus like on the top. Everything's kind of like this pyramid, and what's happening on the top is where we need to focus our energy. And there's like a lot of like dust being, thrown around down here at the bottom, and people are just like caught in the dust. And when I say dust, this is like our mental energy. It's all chaotic and we can't see through, the heavy dust cloud. We have to, bring clarity, and we have to keep focus on the top, because once the top of that pyramid, we're essentially in a pyramid structure right now. Once the top of that crumbles, everything else will just come crumbling down. And one way that we continue to perpetuate this system of chaos is because we continue to think about the chaos. If there's, we have the top and there's like, 100 things that are happening down at the bottom. If we're thinking of every little thing down here at the bottom, all those 100 little things, we are essentially fragmenting our energy, and we can't even have like a steady thought as to what to take out next, or what to focus on next, or, what discussion should we, propose, or, what should we talk about next. We can't even organize it down at the bottom because it's so fragmented. If we have 100 things, we have our thought, if we have one thought, now that thought is split like 1/100th, and we can't put any energy towards it to think of a solution. And, I think especially like what's happening now, if we keep this in mind, energy goes where thought flows, or energy flows where thought goes. You can, change the words how you want, but it's essentially meaning, whatever you're thinking of is where your energy is going to go. There's some people that are still down at the bottom tackling some of these like small, dust storms essentially, and they're actually doing a good job because, we need to have the information. We need to focus our energy in some of these little things to keep fighting. Essentially, we need to concentrate our energy and focus it at the top, but without the people at the bottom that are doing the digging and the searching. For example, they're looking for the truth. They're shining the light. I mean, if you think about a pyramid structure, you have people, shining the flashlights into these nooks and crannies of the pyramid that are showing the other people the way that they need to go. They're showing them where the staircase is, for example, to take them to the top of that pyramid. So we need to focus the energy at the top, but we need to have the people at the bottom that are doing the legwork, that are doing the research, that are searching for the answers, because those are the ones that are going to guide us to the top. Decide that, well, we're going to put our time into resolving all of these issues. There's 100 issues, so I have 100 minutes of the day, and 1 minute I'm going to put into each issue. Or we can concentrate that time and say, I'm going to focus all my time and energy on that one specific issue. Or we can say, if we're, taking into consideration the current global agenda, for example, which is, it's threatening, or a kind of relevant example at this point. The global agenda is kind of taking precedence over our personal lives right now, because it is impeding certain freedoms that, if we continue to focus simply on our personal life, there is the fear that we will not be able to move forward due to the global agenda. So going back to this discussion, where our thought flows, the energy goes, or essentially what we're thinking of is where we're eventually going to put our energy into. Going back to this pyramid structure, if we have everything, under this pyramid, we can think, to put our energy into some of the things that are happening down here at the bottom, and, resolving these issues as they come up, which, some people are doing an excellent job at doing this. There are some people very focused on one thing. And, if, I have to make a suggestion, if you are focusing in on, any current agendas, try to keep your energy into just one or two instead of trying to tackle like 15 or 20, because what happens as our thoughts, our thoughts, if we think of, our third eye, for example, and this power of thought, the more that one thought can be concentrated energetically, the more powerful it will become. So, just like anything else, if you were, taking a trip, across country, if you just drive on the straightest road there and, never get off, never take any sightseeing tours in another place, never take the scenic route, you just take the one road straight away to your destination. You're going to get there a lot faster, you know, just driving on that one road versus, if you take the scenic route, maybe you're, let's say New York to LA, just the straight road, you're going to get there quickest as possible. You're going to have directed energy versus if you're taking scenic routes, maybe then you're going up to, I don't know, you're driving down through Ohio and then you go up through Minnesota and then you go down to, Texas and then you go up to Washington. Then you finally arrive, at like LA or like if you're going to like New York to LA, for example. So it's going to take you a lot longer to get to where you need to go versus, if we're directing our thoughts exactly to that one thing, that thought is going to be stronger, it's going to be more solid, and it's going to be materialized a lot quicker than if we're, deviating and going through all these, roundabouts and, and scenic routes, so to speak, all the way there. If we think about directing our energy, we can focus then on the top as well and, kind of bring things crumbling down. I know that there's a lot of fear right now because, and this is going to be like a side conversation, but like there's a lot of fear because a lot of people are tackling like the New World Order and, and even I myself, I get really caught up in a lot of the details sometimes. But I think what's important to remember is, when we're focusing our energy, we have to really think where it's going to serve the most. And, a lot of these little arguments, it's great that people are fighting them. We need to, have people on the front lines. We need to keep out there. We need to keep at it as much as we can. But at the same time, we also have to remember that when we do that, our energy goes there. And any place that we put our energy, this means that it's taking away from another place that it could possibly go. For example, if you have 100 things going on at the bottom of the pyramid, you have 100 people fighting all of those different things, but you still have this going on up here at the very top, but nobody's fighting it because they're all fighting these. The question should be proposed then, well, what would happen if 100 of those people, instead of focusing, one person on each thing, all those 100 people got together and they all just focused at the top? So we have to start to ask questions like this. Another thing, wherever our thought goes, the energy is going to go. Even if we put our energy like into things that may seem like we're doing a good thing, and I'm not giving I'm just sharing like observations on this. I have my opinions and what I think about it, but it's just, this video is kind of like an observation. So, any comments that you guys have, go ahead and share below. But, the whole energy thing, like what would happen? Because what happens is like how energy works, then wherever we put those thoughts, the energy goes into that, and that thing becomes stronger almost. So whether it's good or negative or positive or negative, it's made bigger because the energy went there. Now, what would happen, for example, if we simply don't put the energy there? And I talked about this in another video where I used an example of Merlin and how basically to change things, people just, they looked the other way. And I'm not saying that this may not work in every situation, because there's going to be situations that you're confronted with in your life that you're going to need to fight for. You're going to need to, if somebody comes up to you in the street and they're yelling in your face and they're threatening you, you are going to have to take a physical action in some kind of way. And I'm not saying like beating the person, but you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to make some kind of choice to resolve that situation in that moment. And it may be just simply walking away. But if they physically do start beating you, how are you going to walk away? So kind of like every situation is going to have a different choice that needs to be made, you know, a different action that needs to be taken essentially. But like I talk about in the other video, like with Merlin, there's a lot of things going on right now. And I'll give some example, like the masks. Okay. I'm just going to use the current situation because this is like the big global threat right now. So we have the masks, we have the contact tracing, we have the tests, the swabs that people are doing. All of these things we're giving our energy to. We're watching it on the news. We are, buying the masks. We're like buying into this whole thing like, oh yeah, now the masks are fashionable, blah, 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 which my personal opinion is like I'm vomiting now when I see, like masks for sale. I can't deal with it anymore. But, um, what would happen if we just simply ignore it, on a collective whole, if we turn our backs on it and just like, it doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist. So we're not going to keep putting our energy into it, and I think we've kind of like arrived at this time that we just have to stop putting our energy into some of these debates, and we just have to, not think about it and not energetically go there, so to speak. And just, it simply doesn't exist. Like Queen Mab, when Merlin basically turned his back on her, she just ceased to exist. And that was the end of evil. So, I mean, I guess it's like an observation, but even like a suggestion, maybe like, you know, we have to just kind of like, and a personal comment, obviously, we have to just not give our energy anymore to these certain agendas, and maybe still keep fighting some of the ones that are a little more threatening right now. And some of these little ones that are just blowing up dust, just simply ignore them, just turn our backs on them because these little things that we're paying attention to that we keep, now there's the contact trace. If everybody's putting their energy to that, thinking about it, oh no, I got to do the contact, people, which if you look into it, I suggest do your research and look into it because even that's not, it's not for your protection. They're not doing anything for your protection anymore. It's just about control. And, go ahead and, watch my other videos about this. But, more of a suggestion kind of, more of like a comment is, maybe we should just stop altogether, supporting these things and putting our energy to these things and just simply go about our lives as it was 6 months ago or 8 months ago, we were doing fine up to 6 or 7 months ago. So why the chaos? Why are all these things changing? They'll keep pushing these things as long as we keep thinking about it and keep putting our energy towards those things. So once the energy stops completely, if you unplug your computer, there's no more energy going to your computer. And essentially, it's kind of what we have to do in certain situations, and especially the smaller ones, because, if we're, like I said, there's the pyramid and it's the top that we really have to worry about. But some of these other agendas down at the bottom are a little bit more pressing than others. So maybe we do need to keep fighting them a little while longer, just like if somebody's actually physically beating you down on the street, and we are fortunate that we do have people doing excellent research, giving excellent reports on these and, going, against the politicians and going against the lawmakers, etc., to make their voice heard. So I definitely applaud these people. I just think that some of these smaller agendas that are going on, you know, where our thought goes, the energy goes, or the energy flows. So maybe just not give any more thought to these things. And eventually, if nobody's participating in these things anymore, they'll eventually just go away, you know, and they will cease to exist because they're not being fed by any kind of energy, whether it's good or bad. Because we do have to remember also that energy is fed by all thoughts. There is, you know, in terms of the universal energy, there is no good or bad thought. There's just thought, you know. So just some observations I wanted to make, some comments that I wanted to make, and, you know, my perspective on energy. So yeah, let me know any questions, comments, etc., etc. Subscribe if you like to subscribe, like the video if you like the video, and namaste.